So, let's dive into one of the most unsettling paradoxes in all of finance. It's this idea that your safety net, the very thing you build to protect yourself, well, it can completely vanish right when you need it the most.
You know the drill. It's investing 101, right? Don't put all your eggs in one basket. So you buy some stocks, some bonds, maybe a dip into crypto or other assets, and the whole time you're thinking, hey, if one of these tanks, the others will hold the line. That's the big promise of diversification.
But here's the kicker. What if that promise is, well, fundamentally flawed? What if the basic math of the market means that when a real panic sets in, all those baskets you so carefully separated start getting thrown in the exact same direction all at once? That's exactly what we're going to unpack today.
And you know, to really see this thing in action, we don't even have to look that far back. Let's just rewind the clock to the start of 2022. It was a perfect and pretty painful illustration of this exact dilemma.
Just look at how the dominoes fell. On January 18th, you've got UK government bonds, supposedly the safe stuff, taking a major hit. Just a few days later, Bitcoin, which is like a totally different world, right? It plummets nearly 19%. Then February rolls around and the entire tech sector starts to wobble, capped off by Meta's absolutely staggering single-day loss. This wasn't a series of isolated incidents.
I mean, the pain was everywhere. Bonds, crypto, tech ETFs, even the biggest of the big tech stocks. All these things that are supposed to zig when the others zag, they were all zagging at the same time. It really felt like there was absolutely no place to hide.
So what in the world was going on? Was it just a string of terrible luck? Well, it turns out there's a kind of hidden rule in the market's DNA, a statistical secret that's been hiding in plain sight for over 20 years, and it explains this whole thing perfectly. So let's start peeling back those layers. Okay, so the easy explanation you always hear is contagion. You know, the idea that panic in one corner of the market just spreads like a virus to another. But what if that's not really the whole story? What if there's something deeper, something almost purely mathematical going on?
And boom, here it is. This is the smoking gun right here. It comes from a paper from the Bank for International Settlements way back in the year 2000, and what it says is just mind-blowing. The very act of the market getting more volatile, just the chaos itself, forces all these different assets to move together. The weird part? The actual relationships between them don't even have to change.
So let's just put these two ideas side by side. The contagion theory says a crisis comes along and basically rewires the whole market. But the statistical reality? It's way simpler and honestly way more startling. It says the rules never changed. The high volatility itself is what predictably drags everything in the same direction. It's not a change in the game. It's a feature of the game.
Let me give you a simple analogy to wrap your head around this. Picture two boats just chilling in a calm harbor. They're just kind of bobbing around, doing their own thing, right? Independent. But then a hurricane rolls in. The huge waves, that's our market volatility. They don't care about the boats. They just pick both of them up and slam them in the same direction. The boats themselves haven't changed a bit, but the environment around them forces them to move together. Okay, so that's a really cool theory, right? But the big question is, does the data actually back it up? Let's get to the evidence and see if the numbers tell the same story.
So the fancy pants term for this is conditional correlation. But don't let that intimidate you. All it really means is that the connection between two assets isn't set in stone. It changes. It's conditional on what the market is doing. In calm times, it's one thing. But in chaotic, high volatility times, it's a completely different animal.
And this is where it gets absolutely wild. The researchers ran a simulation where the overall correlation was, say, 0.5. Okay? When they sliced out just the calm, low volatility periods, the correlation was about 0.45, pretty much what you'd expect. But, and this is the big but, when they looked only at the most volatile moments, the correlation shot up to 0.81. That's not just a little bump, that's a total regime change. And this table just lays it all out, clear as day. It's based on their simulations, and it's basically a ladder. Look, as the volatility level climbs up, the median correlation climbs right along with it. This isn't random noise, folks. It's a predictable, lockstep pattern.
All right, simulations are great, but what about the real world? Does this happen with actual, money on the line? Well, the researchers looked at almost 10 years of data from the German and UK stock markets. And guess what? They found the exact same thing.
And they even had a perfect real-world test case, the Russian financial crisis back in 1998. That was a time of major global stress. Volatility went through the roof. And just like the theory said it would, The correlation between the German and UK stock markets, two completely separate markets, spiked right up with it. It was like a textbook example.
So, if this connection is so obvious, what does it all mean? Well, the implications are actually huge, especially for the people whose entire job is to manage risk, because this creates a gigantic, dangerous blind spot in their models.
Okay, here's how the trap gets sprung. A risk manager looks at data from the last couple of years, which have been pretty calm. In that data, volatility looks low, correlation looks low, so they think, great, we are perfectly diversified. But what's really happening is they're being fooled by the calm environment. They're massively overestimating their safety net and in the process loading up on a ton of hidden risk they don't even see.
And this all leads to one absolutely critical takeaway for the pros. You cannot stress test for high volatility if you don't also model the high correlations that come with it. It's a package deal. Any model that pretends you can have a big crash without that correlation spike, well, it's just not giving you a real picture. It's a fantasy and a dangerous one at that.
Okay, let's bring this all back to you. We've been talking about big markets and risk managers, but what does this old statistical secret really mean for your portfolio? How should you think about your own investments now that you know this?
So here are the big things to take away from all this. Number one, diversification is still super important, but it's not some magic shield that makes you invincible. Number two, the next time there's a real market panic, you should fully expect all your different assets to start moving in lockstep. Don't be surprised by it. And that leads to number three. Real preparation means having a plan for that very moment, for when your diversification just vanishes for a while.
And so that leaves us with one last, really critical question to think about. This isn't just some abstract theory, right? We've seen it's a fundamental feature of how markets behave. So now that you know, truly know, that high volatility and high correlation are a package deal, how are you going to prepare for the next storm?